right, welcome back to another episode of FedSmart. We've got, as I always say, but we really do have some fantastic information for you today. Really help with your perspective on retirement. As you're preparing for retirement, whether you're years out or really close to retirement, or you're already retired, we're going to go over some really, really good information to help you thrive in retirement and have a fulfilled retirement based on a lot of statistics, a lot of things that we see. On FedSmart, we obviously talk about finances a lot. We talk about that. We're going to talk about that today to help you prepare for retirement, but we're also going to talk about several F's. We're going to talk about the
We're
five
talking F
F's.
words today.
Yeah, a retirement filled with F words, and the five main F words, the five categories that we see that you should have a plan for, or if you're already retired, maybe one of these F's you need to work on so that it will increase your satisfaction and thriving in retirement that we see consistently over time. What's cool, Stephen, you and I at this point, I mean, we've literally met between the two of us with thousands and thousands of people that are retiring or retired. And then we get feedback and comments and questions all the time. So we have amassed a lot of data. We're also students of retirement. And so we've read all kinds of books and really see five key things that if you can plan for in retirement, it's going to really help you not just, get by, not just kind of skate through retirement, but to really maximize it. A lot of times we look at this retirement on the horizon, we plan for it. We don't really intentionally look at what we're going to do in retirement. And then we get there and we kind of end up just going through the motions and it ends up letting us down and we don't feel as fulfilled when we
Especially
go
when
into a
people
retirement.
are retiring way sooner than they thought, like this year.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of times you're thrown a curveball. Even this year, there's a lot more of people being kind of forced out or retiring sooner than they planned. But also, sometimes Stephen, people have health issues or they have family members that they have to help with, and they retire sooner than they think. So you never know how life's going to go. And the sooner you start planning for retirement, or for those of you who are already retired, you're going to get a lot out of our conversation today as well, because we're going to talk about five key categories that you should intentionally look at and plan for your life so that you're not just retiring from something, but you're actually retiring to something. And you're going to retire to a maximized life planning for these five F's. And the first F is obviously finances. We're going to talk about finances again briefly. We've talked about it, but how do you plan for finances in retirement and thrive? Then we're going to talk about fitness, how to stay healthy in retirement. We're going to talk about fun, good things that you can do in retirement to maximize your retirement, to make it as enjoyable as possible. We're going to talk about family and friendships, relationships. How do you maximize relationships in retirement based on what we've seen and studies that we've seen and talking to people? And then lastly, your faith, your spiritual fitness as well, to make sure that you're thriving in all five areas. And if you do that, we find that you're going to have a very like I said, content, not just content, but oftentimes you're really thriving in retirement. Not every day. I wish every day was rainbows and roses in retirement, but it's not always that case. But if you're intentional to plan for those five things, then a lot of times you're not just going to, just kind of get by in retirement, but you're actually going to thrive and enjoy it. And when we look at finances, and we've talked about finances a lot on our previous episodes, and a lot of people think, I've kind of got that in place. And we're like, oh, really? How much money do you need in retirement? They're like, well, I don't know. And you kind of just think, well, I know what my pension is what it is, and my supplement or my Social Security is what it is. I can't change that. So I'm just going to use that to get by. Or I kind of know what it is. But Stephen, they don't actually know their take home pay, after deductions, after taxes,
They
federal and
also don't
state.
know their outgo. It's shocking how many people have no idea how much goes out per month. And unless you know what's going out as far as debts and bills and all these things, it's really hard to really know what if the take home is going to work and everything else as well.
Right. Yeah. What are your monthly expenses? Well, I don't know. How much do you need per month to maintain the same lifestyle in retirement? And we hear quite often, I don't know. When I ask people, what's your take home right now while you're working? A lot of times, Stephen, people have to go grab a leave an earnings statement and look, or they have to look at a bank account statement to see what's deposited every pay period. We don't even fully know what we're getting now, and then we expect to know what we're going to get in retirement. And so it's easy for finances to throw you a curveball because you don't even know what you need in retirement and what you're going to get. And if you don't know what you need in retirement, and you don't know what you need, what you're actually going to be getting, then you don't know if you're going to have enough just from your pension and your Social Security, and how much you're going to need to pull from your TSP or your other retirement assets. So you don't know how much you're going to need to pull. So you don't know how long it's going to last. And then you don't know if you're going to have extra money for enjoyment and fun and travels and hobbies and the things that you'd like to do in retirement. So you have to start with the basics with finances, and you have to know, okay, how much am I actually going to get? Am I going to take home in retirement between my pension and my Social Security? And honestly, there's no calculator out there that really is going to accurately give you that information unless you understand your situation. Because what I mean by that is the GRB is going to give you an idea, but a lot of times it's incorrect on federal taxes. It doesn't know what state you're going to retire in and how your state taxes federal pensions. It doesn't know if you're going to choose a survivor benefit or not. So it gives you an idea of what it's going to be with a survivor, without a survivor. And so you have to know these kind of things and just sit down and look at your situation. Again, are you going to take a survivor benefit? Are you still going to have a family FEHB plan in retirement? Or can you switch to a self plus one, and so on and so forth? And that will help you understand your finances in retirement. And then by knowing that, Stephen, and we have people that know, okay, I'm going to be able to take home the same amount I was taking home by just pulling, this much from my TSP. And then that allows me to have this much left over to plan for inflation and long-term care. I've got all that planned for it. Now I have this block of money, whether it's my savings or additional money in my TSP above what I need in income. Now I can do the things that I want to do, which brings us to our next category, our next F, which is fun. Now you need to have some kind of idea of what you would like to do in retirement, some kind of fun that now you're going to have some free time. And I just talked to somebody who retired earlier this year, Stephen. As of the recording of this call, it's May, and they retired in January, and they're just kind of getting their time now filled up with all kinds of odds and ends and things to do around the house and taking care of family and all of these things that they have to do. And they said, I thought I would have a little more free time in retirement. And the thing is, that doesn't always happen. But if you were intentional going into retirement and you knew what you would want to do with your time, what fun you would like to have, whether it's traveling, whether it's volunteering, whether it's a hobby that you've always wanted to do, and you intentionally plan for that and allocated time towards that, that allows you to have that fun that you wanted to have. Otherwise, your time's just going to be filled up with other things.
Yeah, and
Or
like you're saying, you can schedule it ahead of time. So then
yeah,
everything can kind of fall around that fun scheduled time instead of it just getting swept away and you never being able to do anything.
exactly. Into retirement is kind of time to prioritize yourself a little bit. There's nothing wrong with that. To prioritize things that you've always wanted to do when you weren't able to do it, when you had a 9 to 5, so to speak, and you had a job that actually told you what you had to do with your time. Now you are the master of your time if you're intentional about it. And you can say, I'd like to allocate this type of time to this fun activity, to this hobby, or otherwise your time just ends up getting filled up with other things. Or even worse, you end up having a kind of a stagnant lifestyle. And the people that sit around and kind of watch TV or play on social media and don't do a lot, Stephen, we find become the least healthy, the least healthy mentally. A lot of times they become more negative and things like that when we're just sitting around and watching the news, and your time just gets filled up with kind of doing nothing. That's one of the worst things that you actually can do in retirement. So you want to start looking at what's some fun that I've always wanted to do. I just talked to a client that she always wanted to learn another language, but was so busy when she was working, she never had time. And so how cool is it? She's in her late 60s and she's learning another language, and she's already conversational in Spanish, and she plans on learning Italian next. And what's cool is she's doing very, very well learning Spanish. And then they plan on going to Spain next year when she's conversational in Spanish and be able to use her Spanish when she's traveling. And then as she feels like she's conversational, then she's going to add Italian. And obviously the following year, they plan on going to Italy. And I thought that's a really cool idea. She's always wanted to learn a language, and just an example of what you can do. So you want to prioritize fun. It's okay. You worked all these years. You hopefully have some free time, or at least some time that you can allocate towards something that you get enjoyment and fulfillment out of, and start thinking about what are those things? What are things like when you were a kid? You can look back all the way before you were, in school even, and what are some things that you wished you would have been able to do, and now you're going to have that free time to do that. So you want to do that. And then one of the things that you also want to plan for is your fitness, your health. You want to make sure that you're prioritizing your health, as you're getting ready for retirement. Hopefully, if you're years out from retirement at any stage in your life, hopefully you're prioritizing your fitness. But as we get older, it gets even more and more important to intentionally plan for your fitness. Stephen, we read an article recently in a study by AMA, American Medical Association, that showed if you're just active for just 60 minutes a day, an hour a day, some kind of activity, it doesn't even have to be,
Doesn't have to be CrossFit or HIIT.
yeah, it didn't have to be super vigorous, like cardio where you're
Bunch
for
of
60
bodybuilding
minutes.
retirees.
Yeah, bodybuilding, you're sweating, and nothing wrong with that. But if you don't have to be on the treadmill, on a 9 speed for 60 minutes, it's just being active for 90 minutes, taking a walk for, or excuse me, 60 minutes, taking a walk for 60 minutes, or going outside, or going in the pool and moving around in the pool. Some kind of activity for 60 minutes increases your mortality by up to 11 years on average. Again, we were talking about earlier with fun. If you don't have kind of a stagnant lifestyle, if you prioritize activity and movement, the AMA says that's going to increase your life expectancy by up to 11 years. Not only that, but when you go to have fun, when you go to travel, you're not out of breath all the time. When you're walking around Spain or Italy or Hawaii, or taking that road trip you've always wanted to take, if you prioritize your fitness, you can actually maximize your free time. It gives you that, the desire. Action, breeds other action. And so when you're active and you have prioritized being active, that also increases your mood and your likelihood to go have fun, to go do the things that you'd like to do. So you have to prioritize your fitness. And obviously, activity is a big one. The other one is by prioritizing your fitness, then you're going to be paying attention to your diet, and you're going to be eating healthy things. It's easy when you start to get into retirement. We find, Stephen, we talk to people when they start adding travel more. Well, what happens when we travel? Oftentimes we start eating a lot of things that we didn't plan on eating that aren't super healthy. We're
But
eating
they're
more
really
sugar.
fun.
Yeah, exactly. Having a lot of fun. When you go on those all-inclusives, there's a buffet there, and you can have all the food you want. And so part of the F of fitness is the F of food. You have to pay attention to what you're eating, prioritize that.
That's a 4-letter F word.
Yeah, exactly. Food. That is a four letter F word. What do you call it? They're going to have to bleep that out and say the food. What's the censors are going to have to bleep that four-letter word. But you have to pay attention to what you're eating and your activity. We talk to people all the time, again, that are in their 70s and 80s and 90s even, and they say, man, I wish when I was in my 60s, I would have prioritized having fun, doing things that I would want to do, and prioritize my fitness so that now I'm not as achy, or now I'm not dealing with these health issues. A lot of medical issues. I read an article a couple years ago, and they basically summarized and said a lot of your medical issues boil down to what you did and what you ate, how active you were and what you put into your body. So you want to pay attention to, again, prioritizing just 60 minutes a day is going to increase your attitude. It's going to increase your health overall. So you want to pay attention to that and prioritize that as well. And then we want to prioritize relationships. The other F, family and friendships. Okay. Maybe you have family. Maybe unfortunately you don't have a lot of family, but you have friendships. You can now prioritize relationships. It's very, very healthy that we get around other people, that we have conversations. You prioritize that. And Stephen, we talk to people a lot of times that say, well, I'm going to retire, so I'm excited to spend more time with the grandkids. I want to spend more time with my grandkids. And a lot of times I say, well, have you talked to your grandkids and your kids about that. Your grandkids sometimes are very, very active. They have all kinds of things going on. And just because you have some free time doesn't mean it's going to be catering to their schedule. And you have to kind of prioritize. I've talked to clients that they will drive their grandkids to and from sports activities, and so that they have that time, because otherwise their kids have or their grandkids have so many activities and things that they have to cater and change their lifestyle. But again, if you just kind of have this idea, I'm going to spend more time with family, but you haven't looked at how are you going to spend more time with family? When are you going to go? Are you going to go to sports activities? If they're out of state, are you going to find the best time to go visit them that works with their schedules as well? You, again, have to be intentional on those family relationships and then friendships as well. Some of your friends are going to be retired, some of them are not. So you have to look at your schedule and see when's the best time to prioritize these relationships, these family and these friendships. And again, same thing, Stephen, when we talk to people that get out and they're fellowshipping and they're having conversations, it also is stimulating their mind. It's allowing them to have different conversations. And we're not talking about social media. That is not, prioritizing family and friendships. That's a part of it. Social media can be good, but it also can be negative, right? You get on social media and you start being a keyboard warrior and just arguing with everybody. That's not what we're talking about. Getting out, having conversations and things like that. And like a lot of these things, again, when you're looking at it and you look at your time, you look at the way to maximize that will allow your lifestyle to cater to those things that are prioritizing. A lot of people ask us, Stephen, what's the best investment out there? What's the best investment that I could be in there or be in, or what's the best investment to maximize my life? And I always say the best investment you can make is in memories. The best investment out there is memories, getting out, doing the things that you want to do, traveling, seeing the things that you want to see, going out there and meeting your grandkids or meeting with your grandkids, and hanging out with family. When you talk to people and they remember their grandparents and they remember the things that they did for them and did with them and the memories that were created, that's so much more meaningful than the fact that, yeah, my grandparents left me several $100,000 or left me, seven figures. That's not as important as the memories that were created. That is one of the best things that you can prioritize, is making memories for yourself and for your loved ones around you, your friends and your family, making memories with them. And then the last thing that it really helps you thrive in retirement is prioritizing your spiritual health, your faith. Are you going to church events? Are you reading books that challenge your faith and challenge your spiritual viewpoints? Are you reading the Bible daily? Whatever is important for you, but having a healthy spiritual life, is very, very important. And if you can prioritize those 5 things. So when you prioritize your finances, your fitness, your fun, your family and friendships, and then your faith, all 5 of those things, and you're retiring to something where you have a plan that you're going to maximize all 5 of those things, those are the people that not only just skate by and not just content, but are oftentimes the most happy in retirement when you've prioritized those 5 things. So when people say, what are you going to do in retirement? You're going to say, I'm going to have a retirement filled with F words. What do you mean by that? I'm going to prioritize these 5 F's in my life so that I don't just skate by. I don't just, it's amazing to me that we work all these years to get to retirement, and retirement's on the horizon, and we don't even sit down and intentionally plan. But if you break out those 5 categories, again, whether you're 30 years from retirement, whether you're 2 years from retirement, or you're retired, take an inventory of yourself and say, what am I doing to prioritize these 5 things, these 5 areas of my life, and maximize them so that you can going into retirement. And then, Stephen, I do that right now. And then again, it's good to take inventory every couple years. You plan those things, you work towards them, and then sometimes you work towards them and you find out, you know what? Like I've talked to some people that I'm going to golf. I want to get out and golf. And I talked to them like a year later and they're like, I hate that sport. I've never been more frustrated in my life. Turns out that golf is not what I planned. Well, take inventory. What else is something that you'd like to, to try or whatever? One last thing that I've talked to somebody recently that really opened my eyes, and maybe it'll help a lot of you, is remember when we're retiring, we're almost losing a part of our identity. Our vocation is part of our identity. Here, we ask people, how are you? Where are you from? What do you do for a living? That's one of the first questions. That's been a big part of our identity. And sometimes when we're losing our job, we're losing our identity that kind of ultimately determined how we act in those 5 areas. So when you're losing that vocation, how are you still going to maximize those 5 areas? And I had somebody recently that told me, Stephen, they realized they were really good at their job, and they didn't, just because they were losing their job didn't mean they were losing those skills. So they figured out, how can I mentor in an area that I was really good at in my job? And so, for example, if you were really good, you were, worked in accounting, how can you mentor people in an area of accounting and finances? If you were very good at research, how can you mentor people to help them grow in relationships and research and things like that? And so again, maybe you're not going to be working 9 to 5, but you can still work in that field as a mentor. And I thought that was a really good piece of information that they shared. Again, consulting and mentoring, you can do that in retirement. So prioritize those 5 things. Think about the things that you would like to do. Don't just kind of say, oh, it'll work its way out, things will fall into place. That can happen, but to really thrive and maximize it, you have to be intentional in those 5 areas. So hopefully that's given you some good ideas to at least get the wheels turning, at least start to create some imagination on some ways to maximize those 5 things. We here at FedSmart, we're all about helping you get the best retirement possible. And it's not just around finances. Don't just think about it as money, but think about it to be fulfilling in things so much more than finances. In fact, I would even submit to you that there are way more important things than money, and finances are a part of retirement, but it's not even the most important thing. So prioritize those other things, help you maximize your retirement. We appreciate everybody listening. If you have any questions or you need any assistance with anything, as always, you can go to FedSmartRetirement.com and click on book an appointment with Stephen and I, and we can help not just with your finances, but go through some other areas to help you maximize your retirement. We'll see you on the next episode. We appreciate all of our listeners. Share this. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, anywhere podcasts are available. You can share this with all of your friends. If they're not just on social media, we're on all platforms. We appreciate y'all. Have a great rest of your year, 2025. Let's make the best of it. For those of you who are retiring or close to retirement, we wish you all the best and a smooth transition into retirement. If you're already retired, hopefully you use one of these 5 things to help maximize your retirement. Wish you all the best. See you on the next episode.
See you on the next one.
FedSmart Podcast is meant for informational purposes only and should not be taken as financial advice or tax advice. FedSmart Podcast is not affiliated with any government agency or OPM. Jessie Black and Steven Puckett offer advisory services through Integrity Wealth. Integrity Wealth and FedSmart are not affiliated. If you'd like an appointment, please go to FedSmartRetirement.com and schedule a free one-on-one appointment. Thank you.